story worth hearing. Everyone has something that makes them, them. Tune in and learn the rich history of the everyday person around you. Only on People We Know and Stories We Don't. Exclusively on KDNRadio every Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. People We Know and Stories We Don't is lovingly dedicated by the network in memory of Sarah Chana Bas Mendel Kolberg. May her soul have an elevation in heaven. All right, and we are here with Richard Collis, the creator of We Sing Together, We Stay Together.
Hello?
A wonderful CD bringing Shabbat morning services to life. So, Richard, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you? Thank you for inviting me.
I'm doing well, thank God, and it's my pleasure to finally have you on the show. We've been really looking forward to this. I know we've been trying to get it for a little while. So, first and foremost, tell us your background.
Okay, I'm a London Jew. I'm 54 years old. I live in Hendon in London. My mother is originally from Algeria, grew up in France, so she's Sephardic, and she brought me up speaking French. And my father is an Ashkenazi Jew with his background from his grandparents from the Ukraine and Poland.
So, how did you guys get to London?
How did they get to London?
Yeah.
Well, I think my mother came to work here and met my father, and he was obviously born here, as were his parents, and the rest is history.
Okay. So what is this whole let's start with what brought you into music?
What brought me into music? Okay, I was never a musician. I was never a singer. I was just a Jewish boy from a very, very secular background. And I went to non-Jewish schools. And I went to Cheder. We used to call it Cheddar on a Sunday. And I was taught like everybody else. And I had my bar mitzvah. And I never understood a word of anything that I was doing. I never understood any prayers. And at the back of my mind, it never made any sense to me that I was a Jewish boy, I was going to a synagogue, and I just didn't have a clue what was going on. And I remember when I left the synagogue after my bar mitzvah, I was effectively, there was a standing joke that this was my synagogue, or we used to call it shul, leaving certificate. And I would only come back, and I was wished by some of the establishment that they should only see me again in many, many, many years when I was back saying Kaddish, basically. And it was always a strange feeling that I just didn't understand what was going on. And as I got older, it was sort of embarrassment that I just didn't know anything about Judaism. I didn't know anything about my heritage, my faith. And when non-Jewish people asked me about Judaism or anything Judaic, I just didn't know. I had no idea. So it was something that was bothering me. And over the years, it was just germinating, it was going round and round in my mind. But I had no tools. I had no tools to do anything about it. I knew no Hebrew. I knew nothing. So, and then, I eventually, because I felt so Jewish, I went to Israel. I went on an All-Pan, but I was 19 or 18, 19. So what did I do? I did what most guys do at that age. I just messed around and was sleeping on the beach. And I even went to the Hebrew University for a while, but I did nothing. I did nothing of any value. So I then went to the Far East during that gap year. And I was traveling. I was meeting lots of American Jews and Jews from different parts of the world. And a lot of them were searching. So they were searching for inspiration, for something spiritual. And they would be going to temples, and they would be going to all types of different religions. to get a feel for other things, which is great. And all of these were very, very interesting. And I went along a few times. And at the back of my mind, I was always thinking, well, this is strange. You don't know the first thing about your own religion. You're looking at all these other religions, but you don't know anything about yours. And it was a strange, I always had this strange feeling that it just didn't make sense. I remember walking down a mountain in Kashmir. We'd been on a trek to a glacier. We were walking down, and I just thought I was going to go do all these things and learn all these other things. And I just thought, Richard, this is crazy. Go and learn about your own first, and then go and learn about others. Learn about your own heritage. And that's what I then started to do. So I then started looking around. Well, what was there? Where could I learn? And what could I do? And it was very, very difficult to find an easy ladder, something that would make it easy for me to connect. And the only thing I was able to do really was to learn modern Hebrew, to speak Ivrit. And so I started doing that, and I started going to see religious people, and we would go through, for example, we did the Haggadah. But it was the Hebrew that was making it interesting for me. The fact that I'd been learning a bit of Hebrew that was making it interesting for me. And then one day I went to synagogue for somebody's bar mitzvah, and I opened up the Siddur, and I went, wow, because I knew basic Hebrew, and it suddenly came to light for me. And it was, this is actually quite interesting. And it completely changed my perspective on it. And I suddenly realized what I'd been missing out on, what all of my friends had been missing out on, because I was them, they were me. Nobody needed to explain to me who the secular Jews were. I was one of them. So I then said, okay, so I kept learning the Hebrew, and I thought, well, I saw all of my friends just disappearing from the Jewish radar. And when I say all of my friends, I mean, I grew up in Northwood and Pinner and Moore Park, which is a suburb of London. And I would say that 95+% of all of my friends who were Jewish, literally, they just disappeared from the Jewish radar, Jewish world completely. And if I'm blunt, it saddened me a lot, because I knew that it was such a positive thing. It was such a beautiful thing. Judaism had so much to offer, and our people had contributed so positively. Forget all the slander and everything that's hurled at us, all the abuse that's hurled at us. We represent something that is positive. We represent love. We represent good things. We have no ill feeling towards anybody. We strive to be constructive, to contribute. And it upset me. So, but I understood why they were leaving. I understood why they had no interest, because I was one of them. So eventually the idea was, well, why don't I try and make the prayers? Because obviously the synagogue is the heart of the Jewish community. And if the synagogue loses its relevance to the Jew, and the Jew never goes there other than for a specific occasion, like somebody's bar mitzvah, eventually the community dies and the Jew with it. So I thought, well, they're not going to go if they can't participate. They're not going to go. There's no way somebody's going to sit there for a few hours on a Saturday morning if they can't get involved, if they're not going to feel inspired, if it's not going to be rewarding for them.
Right.
Well, how can they go if they don't know any Hebrew, they don't understand a word, and some of the people who are there are just mumbling prayers at a speed that is impossible to follow? It's not going to happen. It hasn't happened, it's not happening, and it won't happen. So I thought, well, I'll do something about it. So I started looking around the world for inspiration. Who could help me? Who could give me some tunes, some melodies, anything that would help me? Because I knew that I could do something, because I'd already started learning Hebrew. So I already understood enough to know that a prayer meant something, and I couldn't then have a really happy, clappy melody if it was a sad prayer, for example. So I knew roughly what needed to be done. And I looked everywhere. I even went on road trips in America, and I stopped off at synagogues, and my kids were like, "What are you doing, Dad?" And I was walking in, and I was one of the youngest people there. And they were like, "Dad," and I remember my son looking through the windows from the outside thinking, "Dad, we're on holiday." And I'm going, I'm looking for something. And my daughter, obviously, she was wonderful, and she said she would sit with me and she'd be good about it. But I didn't find anything, and I went onto websites and I phoned people up, and I was a nudnik. People were telling me, "Oh, go and speak to him, and go and speak to him," and I was getting nowhere. And then eventually, I hadn't thought of Israel because for me, I had this prejudice in my head that in Israel it was going to be very functional. It was going to be very matter of fact. They go in to pray, chit chat, job done, and then they're out. I had this idea in my head.
Interesting.
But I managed to contact a guy called Steve Ginsburg, who was the rabbi at the Carlebach synagogue in Sfat in northern Israel.
That's a beautiful one.
And also he's a lovely, lovely man. A man with a permanent smile. Honestly, a fantastic man. And I contacted him and I said, "This is what I'm doing. This is what I want to do." He said, "I know exactly what you need. I said, "Great. Send it to me." So he sent me this stuff, and it wasn't what I needed. But because I knew what my lot needed, and when I'm talking about the secular lot, what do we need? But he wanted to help. So I said to him, "Look, I need 4 or 5 days of your time. I want to come to Israel. We're going to sit with you in your synagogue, and we're going to throw melodies at the prayers." And he was like, "Really?" And I said, "Yeah." So he was such a lovely fellow. He said, "Yeah, come out." So I went down because I was always studying a little bit. I was always trying to study here, there, and everywhere. Mm-hmm. So I went and saw, funnily enough, a Hasidic rabbi, Satmar rabbi, friend of mine, who puts up with me, knowing full well that I'm a secular guy. And I've known him for 23, 24 years now. He's, again, a wonderful, wonderful man. And just to give you an idea, when I first went to see him, when we started getting friendly, I had a T-shirt on with a big picture of a woman on it. And he said to me, "Richard," he goes, "Just do me a favor." He goes, "Just wear a normal shirt or just wear something without that type of stuff on it." I said, "Fair enough." No, I had to learn because I didn't know anything. Anyway, so I went to Israel and I'd photocopied the entire bits because I said to him, "Well, what can we do? What are we allowed to sing?" And we went through the whole lot from Nishmat Kol Chai to the Adon Olam. And he said, "These are all the bits you're allowed to sing."
Why did you start with Nishmat?
Exactly, only because it was such a beautiful, beautiful prayer. It was a prayer that meant so much that I thought we've got to start with Nishmat. So that's where we started. And also we had to have a start, we had to have a finish. And, there was so much to do anyway that there was enough. But I knew that I wanted to start from Nishmat as opposed to, for example, Shochen Ad or... after the Bahu, I knew that I wanted to start at Nishmat. But you have to remember that when I went there, I didn't even know that the Shabbat service on the Saturday morning had a Shachrit and a Musaf. I didn't even know that. I had no idea. All I used to remember was that they did this Amida standing prayer. I didn't even know it was called a standing prayer at that stage. But they did it twice. I had no idea why. Okay. But I knew nothing, absolutely nothing. So, but we went through it. So he would start. So we'd start, and he'd start with the prayer, and he tried a tune, and I'd go, "No, I don't like it. It doesn't sound right." He'd try another one. "No, I don't like it." And obviously, most of these prayers had never ever had a tune associated with them. So if you took La'el Shavat or I don't know, El Baruch or whatever, or Yekum Porkan or Brishmei, some of these prayers, they never ever had any music associated with them. So he was throwing things, and I was going, don't like it. So it's a little bit like saying, I want to sing Michel Mabel, and you start with Michel Mabel, boom, 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 and I go, "No, I don't like it." And eventually he'd come around to Michel Mabel. I could work with that. That's not too bad. Okay, just throw a little bit more into that. Okay, I've got enough. I've got my inspiration. I think I can work from that. So we went through them all, and we got most of them where there was something that we felt, or I felt, that could potentially work. And I then went back to England, and I sat in my kitchen with the laptop and basically created the blueprint. So I sang every word most of them incorrectly, okay, in terms of not pronouncing them properly, but that wasn't important. The only thing that was important at that stage was, let's get the tune so we can then start working with it. And that's what we did. So that's what I did. So I did that, and then when I'd had it all done, my daughter, who's living with me at the time, had to put up with this for 14 months. Okay, but she's such a wonderful daughter. She's so at the end of it all, I remember I've got a video of putting my arm around her saying, "Darling, we've got the blueprint. I've got the blueprint. We're going to get people singing."
14
and
months.
she's looking at me, "You're nuts.
14
You're
months
crazy."
just for the blueprint?
Sorry?
14 months just for the blueprint?
Just for the blueprint. Because when you think about it, there's 2 hours, 17 minutes of music. And you've got to you've got to put all of those words to that music. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And you put it all together, and half the time it's like, well, okay, well, how does that go? Because the words, I understood enough to know that all those words mean such and such. Well, I can't have 3 of those words with 2 of those words too far away, because that doesn't make sense in Hebrew, for example. So it had to make sense. So once I did that, I went to I had the blueprint. I went to see Yossi, who was an Israeli guy that I knew, who was a musician who lives in Edgeway. And I walked in, I said, "Yossi, I have a project to do." He had no idea what I was going to be talking about. He thought it was going to be a couple of days. And I said, "This is what I want to do." And the first thing he said to me was, "I didn't know you were religious." I said, "I'm not." He said, "Why are you doing this?" I said, "Because I want to do it. I want to do it. I want people to sing. I want to give people an opportunity of singing." Okay, I never was able to sing. This is what I would have wanted, to be able to sing, to be able to listen to it in the car, to be able to listen to it with my feet up, to learn it easily. Okay, so he said, okay. Obviously, it was work for him. So the first thing we did, I said to him, was, and obviously I'm not the easiest of characters, and I have my view of how I wanted things done, and I had no experience in music. But I said to him, "I want to do this bit by bit by bit by bit. We're not going to do this. This is going to take a long time. So the first thing I want you to do, Yossi, is this is a project. It's going to be all or nothing. We can't just do 1 or 2, because you can't have people in a synagogue or in an alternative service singing 1 or 2 prayers, and the rest of the time they're sitting there twiddling their thumbs. It's going to be the whole service, and then people can choose what they want, but they have the options of everything." So he said, "Okay." So I said, "The first thing we're going to do is, I'm just going to sing, and you're just going to play on your organ. And we're literally just going to knock it up to the next level where there's music to it." So that's what we did. And we spent a long time, and all he did was play the organ, and I would sing on top of that. And then I went away, and I practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced. And then I would come back, and then I'd sing it again onto the same playback, because obviously he had the playback. And we kept doing that, and we were slowly, it was getting better and better and better and better. And at that stage, we weren't really interested in putting all of the words exactly in the right positions or getting the pronunciations exactly right. It was getting the words so that it just felt right on the music. So we did that, and that took us about 2-3 years. I mean, we're talking 2-3 nights a week, and we were, because there were 64 tracks. There's 2 hours, 17 minutes of music, and we would do it, and then we do the next one, and then I'd go away and I'd practice and practice, and I'd come back and we'd do it again and again and again and again and again, and we kept doing it, and we kept knocking it up a level until finally he said, "Right, I can make the final music now. We know what the music is." And he went away and he said, "I know what you want." And obviously he was guiding me as well, because he's a professional, and he was saying, "Well, maybe we can have some drums here." And I was like, "Oh, I don't know. Can people sing along? Is this going to be right? It's got to be authentic. We can't. This has to be real." And he was saying, "No, it's fine." And it was always, at every second along the way, the question was always, "Can the Kehillah sing along with this?" That was the only thing that mattered. It wasn't me being Frank Sinatra. The whole idea of this was, we just got to present it in a nice, easy listening format so that anybody can learn it, and then other people can then take it, make it far, far better, harmonize it, add voices, because the more people singing it, the better, the more beautiful it's going to be.
Right. So I have a question.
Yeah.
So in that in that sense, why for songs like Ashrei and Adon Olam, which are my personal favorites from the CDs, why didn't you go with the more traditional music
because
that tracks that already existed?
because I felt I just they didn't resonate with me as a secular Jew. I felt that the Ashrei that I knew was um, Ashrei Ashrei Beitecha Od Yehallelucha Sel, and that was it never resonated with me. So I felt that that song needed to be much buzzier and much more much happier. So so I just felt, and there was obviously from within the Carlabachian melody sources, there was something that we were able to use, that we were able to then grow and, let's say, envelop that particular prayer. So all of those. Now the Adon Olam, we were going to do it to a particular tune. I don't know if it's a tune that's in the States, which is Adon Olam Asher Malach. I don't know if you do that one in the States, but we didn't do it that way because whilst we were doing it, and obviously we would have made it much more modern. Yossi was going, hang on, but why don't we do it this way? And he actually basically redid that, and which is why obviously he's credited for that one by me, because it's a beautiful tune that is now the Adon Olam that is on the album. So he then went away and he then made all the final music, and then we had to repeat the process again, singing onto the final music backing tracks. Which was obviously it was much better in some ways, but it was different because sometimes simple music on an organ can be very sweet, but but he made the final music, and then we had to repeat the same process, and then we then got to a certain stage, and that was when we decided, okay, now let's fix all the words, all the pronunciations, and tweak and make sure that every single word is in the segment that it needs to be to make sense to anybody who actually understands Hebrew. Because obviously there's no point in singing if you can't emphasize the meaning of what you're singing. Right. So that was very important, because that's what brings out the heart. You're singing something, for example, one of my favorites is Ava Rachamim Shochem Meromim, which is the memorial prayer. Where
Which track
singing,
number is that?
Sorry?
Which track
Which number? That? It is number 39. Okay, and that's one of my... I mean, that particular prayer could bring me to tears, because it's talking about all the Jews who've been murdered throughout history for being Jewish. And it's such a beautiful, such a moving prayer. And when you actually understand the words, it's mind-boggling. And what I found doing this was how beautiful the words are of our prayers. And it made me think, well, the guys who wrote these prayers were our greatest scholars. What was their intent? What did they want us to get out of these prayers? What was, there was an objective to these prayers. They didn't write them on the back of a cigarette packet whilst they were in the pub. These were our greatest scholars, and they wrote these prayers, and I thought, there's some of them that are so beautiful. So that particular prayer, when they sing, when it goes, Veniketi damam lo niketi. I mean, it's such a, when you actually understand the Hebrew, and obviously I've written the Siddurim to go with it, the sing-along Siddurim where I've translated it, to make sense again to make sense to people like me. It's the meaning is so deep. It's so beautiful, and I felt always disenfranchised. I felt that I was being kept out of something that would belong to me, because obviously we're all equal shareholders, and I was being deprived of what was rightfully mine and is rightfully yours. And absolutely beautiful, and also in things like Tikanta Shabbat, which is in the Musaf Amidah. Again, it's beautiful, and it's one of my favorite melodies in there, and Modim, and there are sort of beautiful melodies like the Misha Berach just before the blessings for the new month is beautiful. The Yiratson, and they're so beautiful, the prayers, and all of our prayers are talking about love. They're talking about good things. They're talking about blessing. They're talking about happiness. They're talking about peace. They're talking about. It's such a wonderful, wonderful message that they're trying to convey. And when you actually understand them and you try and sing them, you try and sing the beauty of the prayer. It is absolutely wonderful. And that's what I wanted to try and get across from the prayers. They're so beautiful. So and those prayers define us. They are our DNA, because those prayers throughout the centuries have permeated our thinking, and it's what has created us. And that's why we're a peaceful people. That's why we have tikkun olam, that repairing the world. That's why we do what we do, because that's the soil that we come from. It's the prayers that we come from that has made us who we are. Even if we don't know them, they're still there, because that was what our great-grandfathers and our grandfathers imbibed, and that's how they passed at least part of that onto us in other ways.
Yep. So we're going to take a break and listen to some of this music.
Okay.
אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא, ועת עשה בחצות כל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא. ואחרי לכלות הכל לבדו ימלוך נורא, והוא היה והוא הווה והוא יהיה בתפארה, והוא אחד ואין שני, להמשיל לו להכבירה, בלי ראשית בלי תכלית, ולא העוז והמשחק, והוא אלי וחי גואלי, וצור חבלי בעת צרה, והוא ניסי ומנוס לי, מנת כוסי ביום אקרא, בידו אפקיד רוחי, בעת אישן ועירה, ועם רוחי גייתי, אדוני לי ולא אירא. אדון עולם אשר מלך בטרם כל יציר נברא, לעת עשה לחפצו כל, אזי מלך שמו נקרא. אשרי יושבי ביתך עוד יהללוך סלע, אשרי העם שככה לו, אשרי העם שאדוני אלוהיו. תהילה לדוד ארום ממך אלוהי המלך, ואבכה שמך לעולם ועד, בכל יום אברכך והללה שמך לעולם ועד. גדול אדוני ומהולל מאוד, ולגדולתו אין חקר. דור לדור ישבח מעשיך, וגבורותיך יגידו. התחבות הודיך ודברי נפלאותיך עשיך, ואזוז נורותיך יאמרו, גדולתך אספרנה. זכר רב טובך יביאו, וצדקתך ירננו. חנון ורחום אדוני, יברכוך, כבוד מלכותך, יאמרו וגבורתך, ידברו להודיע לבני האדם, גבורותיו וכבוד הדר מלכותו, מלכותך מלכות כל עולמים, וממשלתך בכל דור ודור, סומך אדוני לכל הנופלים, וזוקף לכל הכפופים, עיני כל אליך יסברו, ואתה נותן להם את אוכלם ואיתו, פותח את ידיך ומצביע לכל חי רצון, צדיק אדוני בכל דרכיו, וחסיד בכל מעשיו, קרוב אדוני לכל כוכב, לכל אשר יקראו באמת, רצון יראיו יעשה, ואת שבעתם ישמע ויושיעם, שומר אדוני את כל אוהביו, ואת כל הרשעים ישמיד. תהילת אדוני ידבר פי, יברך כל בשר שם קודשו לעולם ועד, ואנחנו נברך יא מעתה ועד עולם, הללויה.
Okay, that was those are my two favorite songs from the albums, especially because growing up we always had a lot slower of a song for those two prayers. So like this upbeat really, as you said, it really brings it to life.
Thank you. Thank you. And the important thing is for people to realise is that it's all free. So they can listen to it on any music site, including YouTube, just by tapping in "We Sing, We Stay Together" as a search. So it's free. And the book, I don't know if you can see. So I don't know if you can see. You can't see. Forget it. We've written the Sidurim, but all of the phonetics and all the translations are all available free of charge as a download. So they could just go to the website WeSingWeStayTogether.com and they can download it for free. The same is true for the sheet music. So the sheet music is free of charge. It's not all up yet, but a lot of it already is. But again, it's free of charge. They can download the sheet music. So if you're learning music, then we have an expression in England, you can kill two birds with one stone. You can learn and teach music, and at the same time you can learn the prayers, and at the same time learn Hebrew, because the Hebrew, the reason it took so long, it took 7 years, was because we emphasized every letter, the exact pronunciation of it, so it was clear. So, and that we went over that, and you'd be amazed at how many times we thought we'd nailed it, and then could you hear the lamed on that? It wasn't maybe clear enough. And Yossi used to go absolutely crazy with me, because he'd say to me, "It's obviously a lamed." And I said, "Look, for you it is, because you're Israeli and Hebrew is your language, But for somebody like me and my lot, they need to hear that there's a lamed, okay, that there's a la or whatever." So we went through it and through it and through it, and to the point of distraction to get it right, because there's no point giving out something that is a learning tool if it's not 100% correct.
Obviously, yes.
To date, nobody has actually come back and said, "You've made an error." And nobody has said in the translations, because I translated it to make so that it would make sense for people like me who didn't have a background and didn't have prior knowledge. So, I've translated something and I thought, that doesn't make sense to me. So I would look at it and look at it and look at it, and I'd look at other translations, and I'd then go and ask people, and I'd look at the roots of the words and everything else until we could make sense of all of it for everybody. So again, everything is free. So obviously, if you need a printed book, you have to buy it from Amazon or on the website, because obviously I can't give away the printed books for free. I can't give away the physical CD for free. But all the music, everything's available free of charge on the streaming sites. So the whole idea is I want people to use it. If people learn one prayer, just one prayer, they've got it for life, because you can't unlearn a melody. Once you know a tune, you can't unlearn it. So I tell a lot of people, well, why don't you just learn the Shema, the first paragraph of the Shema? Okay, it's actually one of the harder ones to learn, because some of the words, shaftam and everything else, it's slightly harder than others. But it's such an important prayer. It is what it makes our heart beat. That's the Jewish prayer, the Shema Israel. But again, there are people doing it, and I'm getting more videos in, and I know that it can work, because I've had videos in from communities in Africa that I didn't even know existed. I've had from Uganda, from Nigeria.
Wow.
And because they're working based on what they've either downloaded or they've asked me to send them or whatever, they sound like they're from Israel. It's perfect Hebrew, because they're actually hearing the words completely, exactly. And that was very, very important for me, so that when you listen to it, you actually understand, and anybody can follow it because it's said so clearly. That was very, very important for me.
One of the things that I noticed is that you go completely in order, even if there's a repeat like the Kaddish.
Could you speak up a bit, sorry?
Well, one of the things that I noticed was that you go completely in order, even if there's a repeat of something like the Kaddish, you do a different tune, and you don't skip the Kaddish, even though it's the same exact one as 5 tracks ago.
Okay, there's a reason for that. I know as a secular person that I needed it to be sequential, so that it's like when you listen to any album, you get used to the sequence. And I knew that if all of a sudden there wasn't, people started doing the Kaddish and they weren't used to hearing it on the album, it might confuse people. So I had to make sure that every single prayer followed the sequence as per the Siddur. And when we were doing it, and we'd done it and everything else, I said, well, Yossi, we've got Kaddish. Okay, there are 3 Chetzi Kaddishes, half Kaddishes, and there are 2 full Kaddishes. I said, well, we can't do the same one exactly. So we added some oomphs, we added some vocals, we added something, or we changed how we would say some of the words so it would still sound nice. There was no point in having an exact replica, because that would be, in some respects, tricking people. There's 64 tracks. Well, actually, some of them are not. Some of them are doubles. Well, no, we didn't want that to happen. So we made sure that, for example, the first prayer, because there are 2 first prayers of the Amida. So we made it different. So the second one is a little bit fuller and it's slightly different. So the people have the option of what they basically want to do. So it's slightly different. Mm-hmm. It had to be the whole service, and it had to be sequential. The whole idea of this was you could parachute in from Mars, and you could learn the entire service back to front, inside out, and you could take it yourself if needed. That was the intention. So, for example, I'm at university, I'm a member of a Jewish society, I'm running the Jewish society, we want to have a service. Okay, well, we can do this. And for people who are dynamic, they can say, we could actually have a fantastic service. It would take us a month. All we do is we say, Joe, you learn track 1. Joey, track 2. Jaime, track 3. Everybody learns a different track. They all come in and wham, you've got an absolutely amazing service with people singing. And the more you do that, people start singing along and they get to know the tunes. And even if they're just humming and whatever, and they're enjoying it. So you can actually provide an alternative that can attract people like me, secular Jews, even if they don't know anything, because the music is easy listening, nice music, and it's clear. They can then pick up the book. They don't have to buy the book. They can print it out, and they can literally just sing along, because you've got all the phonetics. I took a lot of time making sure the phonetics were really, really exact. And then immediately underneath the phonetics, you've got the English. but a very modern English that somebody like me could relate to. And when I say people like me, we have a standing joke in England that my grandfather's generation were Saturday morning in synagogue, Saturday afternoon at the Arsenal or Spurs at the football. Okay, so that's the generation that's the source that I come from. So they went to school in the morning. They went to watch the football in the afternoon, soccer in the afternoon, and then their children, my father's generation, well, they went even less, and then my generation even less. Okay, even less, and unfortunately, my children's generation. I mean, you'd have to try and get them to go. It's nigh on impossible. Nigh on impossible. And that's what this is all about, to try and give people an alternative. Hopefully some rabbis will say, well, I can use this prayer or I can use that one. Nobody's trying to change anything. The whole idea was to make this as authentic as possible. So it was word for word from the Art Scroll, which is obviously a very, very respected Siddur. I mean, the Art Scroll is a scholarly masterpiece. I mean, all of them, not just that one, but some of the other, like the Kohen, and they're scholarly masterpieces. But you need to have a lot of knowledge in order to be able to access it. So for me, it's a little bit like saying, oh, I want to learn about first aid. And somebody then comes along and gives me the American Medical Association doctor's manual. And I'm like, hang on a second. I can't access this. It's fantastic, but it's not for me. I need something simple. So what I've done is saying, here's a ladder. This gets you in. Enjoy it. It'll actually teach you how to learn Hebrew whilst you're singing it because it's being pronounced very clearly. If you then happen to open the Siddur in Hebrew and then go follow it, because you actually know the words and you've been pronouncing them very clearly, it'll help you learn how to read and everything else. So it doubles up. It has additional benefits. And that was what the intention was all along. And it just developed as it was going along, because the book idea was not one that I had at the beginning. It was friends of mine. There's a particular friend of mine called Samantha who said to me, well, do you have a book that so I can easily sing along? Because she had no idea how to read Hebrew. I said, I need to do that. You're right. So then I started doing that, but that was easy in comparison to music. Easy. I mean, that was fantastic. I went to Spain. I was in my parents' flat. My mum and dad were running around looking after me, as they do, because they're lovely. And I'm sitting away writing it out, and I'm going sailing in Menorca, and I'm carrying on, and these guys are looking at me, what's he doing at night, this guy? And I'm writing it and having to go through it and go through it and go through it and go through it again and again and again and again, because it had to make sense. It had to be easy to read. Because again, I always, in the back of my mind, thought, would my friends be able to do this? Because obviously I had learned a lot, but I had to remember where I'd started.
Right.
So that was very, very important. Would my friends be able to follow it? And I used to test it on them. I used to test it on them, and they would go, yeah, I can read that, and everything else.
So you started this interview saying that you...
Louder, please.
You started this interview saying that you weren't a singer. So
well, I wasn't. No, I wasn't. I had sung at school and stuff like that. But when you sing for so long,
so why didn't you have someone else do the vocals?
Because you have an idea of how you want it presented, and you have to try and get the heart across of how you want it presented, and you know what your end result needs to be, and you have to remember that you're looking at me now without Photoshop, okay? So I look like I'm 54, and I could do with some painting, okay? But with Photoshop, I could look like George Clooney. And it's the same with music. When people sing today, the guy in the studio is auto-tuning, and he's correcting, and he's moving, and it's a science. And they can... And because you're repeating and repeating and repeating and repeating and repeating anyway, you're actually getting it all correct. So it's not as if it's like live and all the imperfections are being heard. You've got a lot of help, and obviously as you go along, it gets better and better and better because, you know, the truth be told, I'm sick of listening to myself singing because I've heard myself for 7 years, and some of those tunes I've probably sung them 1,000 times, maybe more, because I've had to repeat them and repeat them and repeat them. So the beauty, what gives me pleasure now is when somebody sends me a video or I go, wow, that's amazing. It's, you know, it's beautiful what you've done, and that's what we need to encourage, because every video encourages more videos and encourages more people to learn.
Yes.
But it's getting people interested, and the biggest problem in my world is apathy, remoteness. People are just not interested, and I knew that was going to be the case because I come from that world. And I remember I went to football. And I bumped into two guys that I had grown up with, who were the sons of parents, of friends of my parents. And when one of them went to the toilet, I spoke to the other one, and I said, "Oh, by the way, I'm releasing very shortly, an album set on Shabbat Morning Service prayers." And his reaction to me straight away, he knew me from the age of probably 5. He said to me, "Not interested, not interested." I was expecting that type of response. Anyway, his friend came back, who I also knew and grown up with. And then when he disappeared and I was talking to his friend, I said exactly the same thing to him, except that I changed Jewish for Hindu. I said Hindu prayers. And his reaction was, "Oh, that's interesting. Well, what made you do that?" Okay. And it was, and I'm looking at two guys that I'd grown up with we were all the same. There was no difference between any of us. Our parents would play bridge together. We were all the same, and those were the reactions. And I knew that it was because they were so alienated, they were so put off by anything Judaic, that's why one of them responded that way.
So you did
as loud as you can.
So you did Shabbat morning and Shabbat Musaf. Are you working on Friday night or maybe even the weekday service?
Okay, it's a fantastic question, David. A fantastic question. I would love to. I would absolutely love to. I've actually got the base for the blueprint for the Friday night.
Because I would love to hear like Eshes Chayil and Shalom Aleichem.
Yep, I've got the base, but this has taken me 7 years. It's cost me an absolute fortune. It's taken out so much of my time from my businesses. It has made Jack, I don't know if you have this expression, it's made Jack a dull boy, okay? Because 3 nights a week I was probably going and singing at night after work, sometimes till midnight, okay? If people are inspired, if people use it, if people benefit from it, if people like you provide the encouragement and spread it, then I will put more effort and I will do the others, because I've got so many ideas that I'd like to do. But if not, then I won't, because I have put this has killed me. It's knocked me for 6. There's another English expression, you probably don't have that. It's knocked me for 6. It's a cricket expression. Okay, but I'd love to do more. I'd love to do the Friday night. I've got so many ideas, so many things that I'd like to do from a secular perspective that would help other Jews connect to different parts of Judaism, with me starting from a standing start, because I'm coming from a position where I don't know it either. So I'm actually going to learn it and present it to you in a way that I could have actually imbibed and understood it in a simple way. So it was the same with the book. When I wrote the Siddur, it was all well and good doing the phonetics. It was all well and good doing a translation. That was obvious. I had no choice. They had to know what it meant, and they had to be able to read it whilst they were reading the phonetics. So it was easy to read, not right to left and then switching to the other side and all counterintuitive and everything else. It had to be easy. And I also obviously referenced it to where it was in the art scroll and everything else. And I also explained the service, but in a very easy way, so that you're not you're not. It's not an edge. It's not as if somebody's going to work and in order to understand it. It's really simple to actually understand. They're opening the ark now. They're putting it back in the ark now, and really, really simple. But I also made sure that there was a little explanation of the prayer. So it's a little bit like saying, here's a prayer. Okay, fantastic. Here are the phonetics, and here's the translation. Mazel tov. Okay, but why don't I give the guy a little chance? I'm going to give him a little head start. I'm going to give him 2 lines just saying, this prayer is about, I'm simplifying it. So if I opened up the book, let's say, and I said, okay, let's just take any prayer. So let's say take the Amidah, Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avotenu B'Acheinu and the Sim Shalom, okay? It's a particular prayer in the Amidah. So what did I say in that? I said, okay, we ask Hashem to bless us with the same blessing as used by the Kohanim to bless us in the Holy Temple of Jerusalem. So all I'm doing is I'm saying, here's a little hint, a little taster, like an aperitif, okay?
A reason for them to learn that track.
Just to make it a little bit easier to know what the prayer's about, to try and make it relevant to you. If you pick up the Art Scroll, which is, as I said, a scholarly masterpiece, you need to really know your stuff to understand what is being said. I mean, I struggle big time with it because of my level of knowledge. So, my friends they're not even going to open it, basically, which is a shame because it is a scholarly masterpiece.
So as we wrap up, is there anything you would like to add?
Look, we all love being Jewish. It's important to us. We all want to see it continue. This is all about Jewish continuity. This is all about Jewish inclusivity. It's all about making us part of our heritage. It's giving us the vote back. This is what this was all about. And it's beyond me. It's beyond me to do it. All I've done is said, this is my contribution. Now it's for other people who are far more dynamic than me, who have got more vision than me, who could then say, I can use this. I can use this to teach music to people. I can use this to have an alternative service. I can do something with this. I can philanthropists who might turn around and say, let's get this into the schools in my area. There's got to be people out there who can say, I can make use of this. Kiruv, outreach. They've never tried doing it through music for prayer before because it didn't exist. That was the big problem because Hasidic music is fantastic in that world, okay? It's fantastic. Cantorial music is fantastic in its setting. There are people who love that, but there are people who can't relate to those, and there are people who can't relate to Hasidic music, and it's for those people. And it's for anybody who's interested, whether they're a music station, whether they sell Jewish books, whether they sell Jewish music. This is outreach. So make it available, package it up, make your money doing it. I'm not trying to make money out of this. That's why I'm giving it away for free. But there are certain things I can't give away for free, obviously. So that's where philanthropists come along and say, well, we'll do it for you. Chuz v'shoilem, as they say. Chuz v'shoilem, somebody should spend $17 on a book. A few cappuccinos on a... What I'm saying is you don't even have to forego a few cappuccinos. Forget it. You can download it for free. But obviously, if you want the book, you have to pay for the book. If you want the physical CD, you have to pay for it. But you can listen to it free of charge anywhere. So it's just, I want people... maybe to share my passion. You can see that I'm passionate about this. And you can see that it's like you, we have it. Why are you doing what you're doing? Because you have a love for Judaism, because you have a love for your heritage, and you want to see it continue. That's why you do. You're not doing it for the money. You're not going to be a multi-millionaire, with a few people listening. I'm not going to be, when somebody listens to it on YouTube, if I get a 0.01 cent for a listen, I'm not going to be going down to Fort Lauderdale and buying a fantastic yacht, I'll be buying a cappuccino, So what I'm saying is, this is for all of us. Let's make the, let's use it, and let's hear your harmonies. Let's hear you harmonize, because it's going to be a darn sight nicer. Can you imagine you've got loads of kids singing it? Wow. Can you imagine you get, it'd be fantastic. And if you get Jewish musicians playing it to their guitars and stuff like that, because they've got the sheet music and they're singing along, it will be absolutely fantastic. They will make it 1,000,000 times more beautiful than I could even imagine. Okay? And they will then take it to other levels. So this is literally just saying, there you go. You've got to start. You've got the melodies and the words placed where they make sense and the clarity of the words. So now, please encourage me to do more, but people have to listen to it, and I have to see people enjoying it and making the most of it. Otherwise, there's no point. Because I'm not going to be honest, if I did the Friday nights, that would take me a year, max. It's very, very short in comparison, and I've had the experience now of doing 2 hours 17 minutes worth, which is a monster in comparison. So I could do that very, very quickly, and I've got other ideas that are very, very short that I could do very, very quickly as well. Things that we would definitely benefit from. But it's time, it's money, it's I take my eye off my business when I do that, and people at my business are saying, well, "What's he doing?" And if they hear music coming out of my office, it's like, really? He's supposed to be running a security business, and all we can hear are Jewish prayers coming out of his office. Well, it doesn't work, So I have to have, I'll be blunt. I'm a human being. I need encouragement. So the truth is, I need encouragement, but we're all in this together. We all have the same love. We're all equal shareholders. We want to see it continue, and we know that if we don't get together, we don't start singing, we don't start having a reason for going to synagogue and singing together, whether it's at university, whether it's in a Chabad house, wherever it is, that's what keeps us together. That's what keeps us enjoying it. Am Yisrael Chai. That's my message. The people of Israel live. And they have to kayam. They have to keep existing.
Yes. All right, Richard, thank you so much. It was really insightful learning more about you and about your project. And I wish you all the best.
Thank you very much. And thank you for inviting me and being part of this mitzvah.
My pleasure.
Okay. All the best, my friend.
Has a story worth hearing. Everyone has something that makes them them. Tune in and learn the rich history of the everyday person around you. Only on People We Know and Stories We Don't. Exclusively on KDNRadio every Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. People We Know and Stories We Don't is lovingly dedicated by the network in memory of Sarah Mendel Colbert. May her soul have an elevation in heaven.